The office was always busy at 8:30 a.m., a buzz of keyboards and coffee-fueled chatter filling the air. Oliver sat at his desk, his screen glowing with unread emails he had no intention of opening just yet. His eyes, however, drifted to the far side of the room, where Emma sat near her window, her head tilted slightly as she stared at her computer. She had that look again, a faint furrow in her brow, lips pressed into a small line. It was the look she always wore when she was in deep thought, though Oliver doubted she was actually working. He had noticed these moments, her quiet daydreams, more times than he cared to admit. He wished he could tell her how much he admired her, the way she smiled at everyone, even on the busiest days, or how her laugh carried softly across the room during team meetings. He'd been drawn to her from the moment she joined the office 2 years ago, her presence like sunlight cutting through the dull fluorescent haze. But she didn't notice him, not the way she noticed Lucas. Oliver's jaw tightened as his eyes shifted to the corner of the room where Lucas was leaning over the intern's desk, his easy smile and confident demeanor on full display. It was impossible to miss the way Emma's gaze flicked toward him. She thought she was subtle, but Oliver saw everything. The way her posture changed, the way her lips parted slightly when Lucas laughed. It was maddening. Lucas didn't deserve her attention, not with his casual charm and the way he seemed to treat everything like a game. Oliver, on the other hand, he knew Emma. He noticed the little things, like how she always added an extra splash of milk to her coffee, or how she tapped her pen against the notebook when she was brainstorming. He was the one who stayed late to help Emma finish the reports when deadlines loomed. But to her, he was just Oliver, the quiet guy who sat 2 desks away and barely said anything more than a polite, "Good morning." He looked back at Emma, his chest tightening as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her attention once again fixed on Lucas. She wasn't even aware of how often she glanced his way. Oliver turned back to his screen, forcing himself to focus. He had no right to feel this way. She wasn't his, and she never would be. By the time lunch rolled around, Oliver's mood had soured further. He watched from his desk as Emma headed to the break room, her movements quick, as if she was trying to escape her own thoughts. He considered joining her, even stood for a moment before sinking back into his chair. What would he say? She'd probably think he was being weird. And then Lucas walked past him, a brown paper bag in hand, heading for the break room. Oliver's stomach twisted. He couldn't help himself. He got up, making his way toward the copier station just outside the break room. From there, he could hear their conversation. Though the words were muffled, Emma's laugh reached him first, soft and melodic, and it made his heart ache. He leaned against the wall, pretending to check his phone as he glanced through the doorway. There they were, sitting across from each other. Lucas leaning back in his chair like he didn't have a care in the world. Emma was smiling, her eyes brighter than Oliver had seen all morning. He should have been him sitting there with her. The rest of the day passed in a blur of frustration and self-doubt. Oliver threw himself into his work, trying to ignore the occasional sounds of Emma and Lucas talking, their voices carrying just enough for him to know that they were enjoying themselves. By the time 4:45 rolled around, the office was emptying out, and Oliver was more than ready to leave. He gathered his things, keeping his head down as he made his way to the door, but then he saw Lucas standing by Emma's desk, his jacket slung over his shoulder. Oliver froze, watching as they talked. Emma's laugh reached him again, and this time it felt like a knife to the chest. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way that Lucas leaned toward her, the way Emma's cheeks flushed slightly, it was enough to send Oliver's thoughts spiraling. When Lucas walked away, Oliver told himself to leave, to go home and forget about it. But then he saw Emma grab her bag and follow Lucas toward the elevator. They were leaving together. Oliver stood, rooted to the spot, his chest tight with a mix of jealousy and longing. He wanted to believe that Lucas didn't mean anything to her, that this was just a coincidence. But deep down, he knew better. So he stayed behind, watching as the elevator doors closed, taking Emma and Lucas with them. For the first time, Oliver wondered if it was time to let go of the fantasy he'd been clinging on to for so long.